I'm just like so excited to get to know you. I don't think we've actually had a sit down conversation and like really kind of get into the nooks and crannies of our story. I know we've had a lot of time to talk, but I'm really excited to get to know you and your journey if that's something that you're down for.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's go.
All right, girl, you got to bring me back to the beginning. Wow, I love that. Thank you so much for giving us the cliff notes of your story, but I like all the details. So we're gonna reel it back real quick. And I just want to clarify, y'all. I think a lot of times when people come on to interviews, they love just being like boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? Like these are all of these big major turning points. But I really want y'all to get to know the folks that we bring onto the show, like as humans, how we've developed and been nurtured along the way and natured along the way, whatever the case may be. And so it just gives more insight to the people that you'll be working with, learning with, following in their footsteps, being a guide, as you know, like I'm a teacher. So I'm like, people I bring onto the show can be potential guides, and so I think it's important to be like, I know Crystal. Crystal is of this has this many siblings and grew up in St. Louis, and like when I'm thinking of St. Louis, I'm thinking of Nelly now. What was life like knowing that? You know what I mean? Like bring me, show me who Crystal really is. I really want to know. Yeah, we're just gonna bring it back a little bit because I'm curious of even when the fashion started, because I know getting to know you, it's been such a big part of your life. I'm like, did it really happen at 18, or is this something have you been playing in your mom's closet this whole time? I'm not quite sure because you're giving us the Cliff Note version. So we're gonna reel it back. Cool?
Okay.
All right.
So really just being the main person or their main kid in the home. So having siblings, but also being raised like, I was a little bit of a brat, a little spoiled. But only childness for sure.
Yeah. Well, see, that brings so much clarity because I'm in a similar situation. My siblings are 15 years older than me. And so the youngest, but more so feeling like a only. So now it makes even more sense as to why like we connected and maybe why a little bit of our extraness because we didn't have older siblings kind of like molding and shaping us, like the things that we like are the things that we like and no one said that's not cool or whatever the case, right? So share with me about like the things that you liked growing up and maybe even audaciously connecting it to like how it's continued to show up in your adult life too.
That's a good question. I've always just liked a bunch of things. I've always been multi-passionate. Like growing up, I wanted to be a detective. I wanted to be a spy. I wanted to be a librarian. I wanted to travel. But more than anything, I just remember like, and that has to do with like kind of where I grew up, I feel like, and just what I saw. But I always like when people ask like, oh, what do you want to, do when you grow up? But I always thought of it as like, what do I want to be? I'm like, I want it to be happy and I want to be joyful. Like I
Mm,
just saw
mm,
so much St. Louis, Missouri is a very like segregated place. And it's
mm,
also a place where at least areas I was in, it can be a lot of like lower income. There's a lot of just situations kind of in that, right? And I just saw a lot of people doing things that they didn't want to do or not fulfilling their dreams or their, different things and stuff because of financial circumstances. And in general, I'm just like I want to be like joyful and just happy with what I'm doing. Like that always was kind of like
mm,
in my mind, like that's what I want to be. I want to be
mm.
joy. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that was kind of but as far as like hobbies, so those things I really loved reading. And then that kind of goes back, like I love puzzles, but it kind of goes into the tech, which I'm sure we'll get into later, but all those things, fashion, like, and I don't even really know when we talked about like the fashion. I don't even really know when the fashion like truly started. I've always been someone who didn't really like really just styling itself. Like I never cared about like, oh, these name brands or this and that. Like that's cool or like what's in season. I'm just like, what do I like? And so I always had like
Mm,
a unique style. I realized even before I even thought of it that way. I was just because I was just doing my own thing. Like I love accessories, like my favorite.
you're so good
Purses,
at it too.
like that's really like my job. I feel like accessories can turn around like any look, seriously. So
Yeah.
that's definitely my thing. I was known for having all kind of like quirky purses. Like I remember one of my favorite purses. It was like this fluffy dog, and then it's like a zipper. Like when I think about it now, it's like, oh, that's kind of weird. It's a zipper in his back, but whatever. Like I love having kind of things like that always like stood out to me.
Yeah, I love that. You see, it's already so sweet. Like, I wish I can like fake my intrigueness and excitement, but I don't know why. It's just so sweet to me because I think sometimes we come onto these spaces and we just try to act so grown up. You know what I mean? And we're like, like I'm all, I mean, maybe not you specifically because, you know, because being eccentric and extra, but it's like, no, like I really just want to bring back the human in us and more so even the childlikeness in us that we kind of tend to forget about often. And so thank you for like sharing that part of you. It just makes me so happy because I think about like if I were to imagine us on the playground and like you just stand out like so much. And it's like I think what I love about these conversations is it shows this common thread of being true to ourselves. And of course we lose ourselves along the way sometimes, but like that's what I'm really excited about getting to know. I'm excited to get to know you in the next part of this chapter in terms of what we're going to get into just because I think a lot of times we're having conversations now where young people are probably not even going to go to school anymore or maybe we're creating new models or something like that or we're learning online or we're getting to choose who we want to learn from whether they want to learn from me whether they want to learn from you whether they want to learn from whoever so but I know that we are at just age wise, we're at that cusp of, I think we were like the last ones that got that last push of like, get a degree, you know what I mean? Because it's going to equal success or whatever the case may be. So, you know, when did you start finding your footing after that season of you having to come back home? Like, how did you start continuing your education and really self education? And what did you find yourself involved in?
Self involved in work because
Yeah.
I needed to take care of myself. Like I had a
Yeah.
place to stay. Like I could always stay at my dad's or my Mimi's, but I didn't have like kind of thoughts about the whole college because like I was gonna say I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I did know what I wanted to do, but I let other people persuade me. But because of that, I didn't know what I
Mm,
wanted to do. And I don't think it's good to go into college if you aren't clear or kind of certain because it's expensive. It's an expensive again, like you see, I'm changing my mind. It's an expensive place to navigate that in some instances, right? Like if I knew what I knew now, I would have did community college first and then
mm,
went to school. Even now, like if I school is still on the like I love learning to continue to do something. Now now it's like, oh, I know I would know exactly what it is my goal is, what I want to do, and so I would
yeah.
approach it different. And even now when I last time I was in school was in 2020 when everything shut down. But even then it was like, oh, I know exactly what I want to learn and what I want to use this degree or these connections, which is also really important part of college to me. Use these connections to move forward with. And before I just really didn't know. Like I just kind of felt like I was like bouncing because I had these things I wanted to do, but I had people telling me like, maybe you shouldn't do that. So I let that kind of
Mm,
sit within like, okay, well then what should I do? And now I went on this adventure to try to find that out when I already knew, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, so I came back and I was just like, I have to work. And I had already been working. I had started working at like 12 or 13. My church, I
Mm,
did they had an internship program and I interned at United Way. And then
mm,
after that, even before I graduated, I was working at so the St. Louis, we have the St. Louis Arch, and down from the arch they do these like boat ride tours,
yeah.
like on the water there. And so I worked at the concession stand there. Actually, I worked at the concession stand before that. Is where I met my now husband. Is I was a cashier there. He was playing a game. He played baseball, and so he came over and he got my number, and we started talking. And I found out he was my cousin's best friend, and I was like, oh,
Oh,
no, no. And so then we just became friends for a while. And then
oh,
eventually started dating down the line. So I've been working for quite a bit, and that's kind of what I knew. I'm like, I didn't really have that. I knew I wasn't gonna have that like support of like
mm,
monetarily up to being able to do certain things. So I knew I had to get it for myself. So when I came back home, that's what I did. I started working like one, two jobs at a time, did a little bit of school, still try to keep up with school at that point.
yeah.
But it's hard when you're working full time and doing the things and I wasn't clear. So it wasn't as much drive to like stick with it. Like I would do it and then I would let work take over and
Yeah.
then I would, kind of fall off and then come
Yeah.
back. And so that had kind of been but at the same time just enjoying like being able to learn different things and being able to grasp new concepts. So like I've taken classes from computer science, fashion design, just like life skill classes, like even that, I'm like, oh wow, like I just love learning and having it in that structure because that would help me a little bit more of like, okay, I need to do this by this date.
Yeah. You were saying you were saying earlier if you knew what you knew back then and that you know now. So if you can go back, you said that I would have gone to community college, like just with the knowledge you know now, bring us back to 17-year-old Crystal because shoot, you know what I mean? Smarty pants over here, wanting to leave school early but wanting to stay a part of the art guild. What decisions would you have made during that time? Would you still have gone to school? If so, like yeah, tell us what with what you know now, what decisions you would have made back then.
Yeah, I would have went with, so my original plan was I was going to go to a trade school myself, which I did. My husband, he went to a trade school and he's doing very fine and has been doing great for the past 10 whatever years. But I wanted to go to trade school for um bookkeeping, which again I found later that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I would have went to school for bookkeeping, but in my mind I knew fashion was expensive, like fabric, machines, all equipment, all that stuff costs money. So I wasn't like, I'm like, duh, this, this is going to be some effort, but I was like, I could do this accounting thing, I could do this bookkeeping thing while I'm building my fashion business. So that was my original plan. So I would have did that and just see what happened. Like who knows what would have came from that, but I definitely would have like went that route and had something more lucrative to support myself. I did end up finding a lucrative career to support myself, but it ended up having a different trade-off. So I became a waitress. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was super in a way, it was very good money considering my education level, but it also led to some bad habits as far as like spending, because like I always had money. Like each day I'm going to work, I'm meeting hundreds of dollars. So it can make it easy to not manage your money as well because it's always something coming. And also after a while it begins to like kind of wear and tear on your body. And so I had been
Mm.
doing it for a while. And at one point I felt really stuck because I'm like, dang, this is all I've been doing. And we talked about like customer service, how like sometimes people view customer service role, but it's such an important skill to have. But because at the time I just felt like I started to feel like, oh, I'm not valuable because all I know is this
Mm.
customer service skill when
Mm.
really that was so valuable, but so many people had, looked down or degraded it that it didn't feel valuable to me.
Yeah, I would love to take a moment for us to just like let's lay down the groundwork in terms of even what it means to work with you in general, like this foundation of customer service. I feel like because I'm on the same page with you, like what is it that you were learning in the customer service industry that now permeates through the way that you serve people?
Just really like, everybody is different and like you just really have to like listen. And I feel like it's so like, even with, I'm going back close, but like I had a while where I was like styling people and I noticed that people can get kind of upset or subconsciously like, oh well, this doesn't fit me, and it's like it's not meant to fit you. Like if you're
Mm.
lucky enough to find a brand that like you could just put it on, like that's great, but this is literally this template that's not going to fit everyone. But it's like we want people to tell us what to do, or we want people to like, oh, this is the thing, and thinking that since it works for others it's going to work for us, and that's not always the case. And so with customer service I really learned how to adapt to different situations and different people, because like you'll have some people that like, they're on a business call, or maybe they just had a long day and they just don't want to talk. And so I'm able to sense that, and so I give them everything they need. And even before that, like it's called, anticipating needs. It's like, okay, this is
Mm.
happening, what are they going to need next? And so those people, like, they may not say anything to me, but they're going to leave me a big tip because that's what they needed. They needed you to not be bothering them, and to like they just wanted to get what they need, their food and have their drink and just have all that. And so they appreciate that, versus other people, they're going to feel like you didn't give them good service unless you talk to them or unless you entertain them. Then they're like, oh well, you didn't give me good service. So kind of recognizing what other people needed, and
Mm-hmm.
then how can I do that but still trying not to like lose myself in that. And I think that's also why, like, when I started my business, the transition from employee to entrepreneur was kind of tough for me, especially being in such service-based businesses where we're like bending over backwards to to help others, which in some cases is okay, but it's definitely other instances where people don't appreciate it, or people like they take that for granted and are possibly rude and disrespectful with taking what is it? Taking that kindness as a weakness. So
Yeah.
yeah, so those are some of the things that kind of resonate with that field.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were sharing with us about like how you went into customer service and working in that industry. Now tell us more about like when things started kind of percolating in your heart that you wanted to go into entrepreneurship. And like you said, this is your third time around. So give us the first, the second, and the third and bring us to where you're at right now.
Yeah. I say the first is definitely I guess that was like I think that was high school. So I was that person that was, selling the snacks. They
Hey,
closed down
okay.
the vending machine. So my dad had a Sam's Club membership. I would get the chips, get the things, sell it. Eventually I got, closed down. They didn't want us, didn't want us selling, and then I had some people snitch on me. I still did it for a little bit, but it's cool.
You seem a little hurt by that. You seem a little hurt by that one.
Why you hate it? Why you
Why
hate
you
it?
knocking my hustle?
Yeah. But doing that and even like that first job that I told you about that I got a internship with United Way, like that money, I was like, okay, like I had a whole business plan. Unfortunately, I got discouraged from doing it, but I had a whole business plan of what I wanted to do with that money. Like I was like, oh, I wanted to do this like bedazzling business. So I was like, looked up how much the materials were gonna cost, all those things, had this, plan and it just kind of goes to it goes to show how much, encouragement, especially from those close around you, can go far. So I had the opposite in that instance. And so I ended up not doing it. Um,
Mm,
I don't want to disclose who, but it was someone that was close to me. And I was like, oh, so that kind of, that discouraged me.
mm,
And I know that, there are, uh, people that can just kind of go through that anyway. And I definitely have experiences where even like people telling me no, like fueled me, but normally it's
mm,
people who are outside of my circle. It's so much
mm,
easier for me to be like, use that as fuel. Like, you don't know me, but I found, and that also goes to like why you have to really be careful of who is in your circle because,
mm,
and who you're listening to, especially when it's certain relationships you can't necessarily, rid yourself of. And so, like,
mm.
how do you adapt to that? But yeah, but that was like the goal. It's like I like even from a young age, I was like, oh, okay, I want to do this. Like I had these ideas of things I wanted to do and bring to life because I just felt like other people weren't doing it or weren't doing it the way that I would do it. And I was just like, again, me being probably the only child in this, I wanted things the way that I wanted them. Yeah, I feel like that's the first time when I like started doing social media marketing. But I think of that as like my freelancing stage because the way I approached it, I was still approaching it, as the beginning as like an employee. So I did everything on hourly rates. I basically
Mm,
was like, hey, what do you need? And I'll do it. Like, kind of
mm,
thing versus no, like here are set packages that I have. This is what I will do and what I won't do. Like I would just take
mm,
on and they be like, oh, I need this. I'm like, okay, like just very much of that kind of that hustle mentality of like trying to earn funds and like, oh, feeling like, oh, I'm earning this outside of a job and just being so
mm,
excited about that. Like I'm creating this
mm,
for myself. So I'm gonna take hold of whatever opportunity I get
mm.
to be able to continue to do that.
Can you tell me more why social media marketing at the time? Like
Mm.
you could have done anything else. Why that?
I really like it's so interesting. I was working at a restaurant and I really enjoyed their food. I really enjoyed their atmosphere. It was a sushi place and they had this like they would play like hip hop and just like it just had such a fun vibe. And it was like open late night, like you can get food late night. They had like just such a great vibe with food. And their Instagram just sucked. Like the picture it's sushi. Like the pictures were dark. It was like it was like that didn't look appealing. And again, just me being a person I am, I'm like, I want them like doesn't reflect them. I was like, I feel like this doesn't reflect them and that it needs to upgrade. And I feel like I can do it. At this point, I had never managed a social media account. I had barely posted on my own social media account or like especially like Instagram at the time. That was definitely, the main platform. But I was a lurker. I was someone who looked on social media. I was very intrigued at like how social media was connecting people and like
Mm,
how it was amplifying people. Like it was so cool to me of growing up. Like I just celebrated my 32nd birthday. I don't care my age, but I just celebrated my 32nd birthday And there was, growing up is like we still had a phase where like we didn't have internet, or we had dial up, and like, like all these different things. So I got to have both the before internet, after internet experience, or like mainstream, experience. And going from, you can only talk to really people around you, or you have like the pen pals or something like that, to like you can literally talk to people in different states, different cities around the world. Like that was yeah, it was just always very interesting to me. And like I said, I'm very interested in data tech. And so I started to see patterns. And so with all that being said, I was like, I felt confident enough that I can do that. Like I'm seeing what's working. At that point I had been working in food and beverage for a while. I think that was like my sixth or seventh year in the industry at that point. So I knew food very well. I knew what, got people. I've worked anywhere from like casual places to super upscale. So like I knew food, and I'm like, I know what's gonna get people to want to come to this place. So I pitched them on it, and I did it, and it was great. It was booming. Like, and not only did I end up helping with their like social media, but just their business overall, their bottom line. I helped them get connected with delivery partnerships. This was in 2016. So like Postmates and DoorDash, like that was so new. Like those things were just kind of coming about. So I like helped them. I was like, yeah, we should do that. Help them with their Yelp check-ins, when that used to be like just the way to go. And so it was just so fun for me, because again, because they had such this like casual layback, I could really kind of talk in my own voice and just be very just be me as I was running the account. So it just worked out really, really nicely, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And then from there, I just started working with other, like I was like, what else can I do? So I did an internship with a branding coach, and started learning more. And that was what really, then I started getting into community management, because they had all these Facebook groups or events they would run. And I started getting into that, and just connecting with other business owners. And it was so cool, because then I got to see like, look at all these people and their stories and their origins, and like why they're starting their business, whether it is the product itself or their life experiences. And so that had a big influence on me of like doing community management with all these different business owners and entrepreneurs, and seeing like, oh wow, these are all the cool things they want to do. But I think I'm trying to like, I've had so many restaurant jobs. I think it was like right before, though. I think also was that pivotal moment, because I'm like, did I go there first? No, because I went there afterwards. So that pivotal moment for me of like entrepreneurship is, like I said, I had been serving for a while, and serving makes pretty decent money. So I wasn't too, much complaining. But I just remember one day I just got done serving, and it was a super busy shift. Like I was tired, and I looked at my tips, and I felt pretty good. I was like, okay, 200 or something like that. I was like, that feels, good. Like I made that in a day. But then I looked at, because we have to do these calculations because we tip people out. And then I don't, for whatever reason, I really, really looked at how much money did I bring into the company. And I would looked at that number, and I was like, dang, thousands and thousands of dollars, just me. That's, I'm just one server. And of course I got my hourly pay, but I was like, dang, and I got, 200 from that. And I was
Hmm.
like, huh. And that's kind of what shifted me, as far, again, like being at that point, being very much like, I'm new to California. I'm like, it's expensive. I need more money. And it just made me think like, that's what they're getting, and this is what I'm getting. And I'm like, I want the big piece of the pie. I was like, I want the big piece of the pie. So my efforts, like I feel this tired, I'm like, I want it to feel more worth it to me. And so that's what really, like, that seed, I think, really began planted then. Because I still remember that moment of looking at that and just being like, okay, that's a big difference.
Yeah, just tell us about what it was like to jump into solopreneurship. What was, getting started and just making the leap in general.
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting. Like I said, it was super exciting. And especially like that first experience gave me a lot of confidence, because again, I hadn't done this before. I was literally figuring it out as I went, and I was doing a really good job at it. And so that
Yeah.
was really cool. But on the same side, I real again, 2016, like not everybody was convinced that social media was even, worth it. And some of the clients I started having were kind of older, and so it became this me of trying to convince them of like why they should do this. And
Mm.
so that part put a little bit of a because I had all these ideas. Again, right? I had all these ideas, and people were just kind of like, and they're like, oh, or just not wanting to do it, pulling them out of their comfort zone, not wanting to do it, not believing in it. And for the most part, I was just like, whatever, just keep going. But eventually that kind of like took a little toll, because it's like, oh, well, maybe it's not. And again, I'm self-taught. Like, I'm not I have some other entrepreneur friends where they started off at an agency, or they started off whatever they do, they did it professionally first. And so and then they were able to go in knowing like, oh, this is what people are paying. Oh, this is how people value it or don't value, or this is all these, metrics. And I didn't
Yeah.
really have that. I was
Mm.
just, finding people and like, hey, you need help, and like, I'll do it, and and just kind of going from there. But again, overall, it was just really fun and exciting, because I really do enjoy like learning about these things, and like, how are they doing this, and what's working and what's not, and what do we have to do next. And video, even before video became so popular, I was already like, I was trying to get my clients to do video stuff, and it was like tooth and nails. And now I'm just like, come on, guys, we could have been ahead of the curve. Like and that's it again. Like that, it's so interesting of just being. I've kind of had this, and that's why I enjoy now of like kind of bringing my own things to life, because I've constantly been that person that's been ahead of the curve. But what will happen is I'll tell people about it, and they weren't seeing it, because it wasn't, I realize now it's like, because it was my vision, and because they weren't seeing it. And then, but also I didn't have, to be quite honest, the funding for some of the things to do it. And since they weren't seeing it, I didn't have funding. I just was like, well, and just go on to the next thing. Like, I have this, sometimes this love-hate relationship with it, because it does so many amazing things. But depending on how you approach it, it can be very draining if you let it take
Mhm.
over. So I had to learn different skills, such as like turning those notifications off. I don't have my notifications on. I don't need to be alerted every single time somebody likes a post, or somebody. I have like set hours when I'm checking things, set hours when I'm doing certain things, or logging out. Like, I have different things to help manage that, because it can be a lot too, because you
Mm.
are managing a lot of different energies, a lot of different people, which, like I said, again, that's cool. You can reach them, but that's also coming back to you. And someone who considers themselves like an empath as well. And intro is like, it takes a lot. It can take a lot sometimes if I'm not doing it in a strategic way.
Yeah. So tell us more about what is the purpose of your agency? Why don't you bring us into like the now of, yeah, well, who you're trying to help? What's the work that's been put on your heart to do and contribute to the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to Geek Marketing, we specialize in video marketing. Like, that is something that I really, again, I love videos. I think it's such a great way for you to connect with your audience. And in particular, we help women in wellness, and then even more so, introverted women in wellness. And so I say that because, like, in general, I just love working with people who have wellness or well-being companies, because I think it's so important that, we pour into ourselves. Like, people want to do all these amazing things, but if you're not taking care of yourself, you literally can't do it. And you
Mm.
can't help these people who need you. And a lot of the clients I tend to work with, they're energy healers, there are yogi practitioners, all these different things, and they're giving, giving, giving. And it's like, if they're not giving into themselves, or if they're not doing things to amplify themselves so that they don't have to take as much energy, they're not going to get as much exposure. They're not going to reach the people that they need to reach.
Yeah.
So that's why I love video, because video is a way to really multiply yourself. Like, one of my services in the past has been multiply your content, and that's really content repurposing. But it's like, how can we use what you already have to continue to make that impact? And it's just and with introverts, it's like, a lot of times people, they camera shy, no one do. But it's like, if you create this video, people can get to know you. You don't even have to be around people, but people can get to know you. You can answer all the questions, right? And like, yeah, like, while you're doing it, you may have these feelings, you may not want to do it, blah blah blah. But once you get done with it, it's done, and you can keep using that, right? And the thing is also, I think that also goes into like shift of working with business owners that are like looking at their future and what do they want to do next. Because like, right now, like, maybe you're just getting one or two people reaching out to you, so maybe it doesn't feel worth it. But you want to prepare for when it's like 20, 50, 100 people reaching out to you. Now, are you going to be able to just respond to everybody? That's taking away time from you and your clients, of doing things with them. And so that's why I love video marketing so much, and why I try to help my introverted women in wellness do that, so that way they can still let people know about them, get people can get their frequently asked questions, because like people have short attention spans. Those are just some of the reasons that I love video, and why I want to use it to help my clients so they can really save energy, save time, and earn more money.
That part, that part. So I have to ask, why this particular audience? You could
Mm.
have helped anybody. You were helping so many different kinds of people, saying yes in every different parts of these seasons, but now you've really niched down in the CEO season. So why this particular audience? Why are they important to you?
So one of the things I left out of like the whole solopreneur, or just the beginning part of my entrepreneur journey, is like I burnt out a lot. Like I would finish a big project for a client, and then I would have to like not do their like work. I would like, okay, I'm ready to tie this up, and like take breaks and then come back. So I burnt out a lot because I was putting a lot into it, and I wasn't, again, properly packaging myself, properly having boundaries, properly. There's a lot of things that business wise I was good at my craft, but I realized business wise there was a lot of things that I needed to learn and to improve upon. And so the whole reason that I kind of even got into focusing on wellness is, again, I started burning myself. So I kind of was done with marketing for a while. I was kind of telling people, I was like, I don't think this is for me anymore, which is also part of the reason why I kind of went into my into that tech career and started working in corporate tech, because I was like, I need to find something different. Like, I'm tired of waitressing. I was like, I don't think marketing keeps burning me out. I've always loved, like, I was already on a direction to do fashion tech. Again, the ebbs and flow. I was like, this was already something I had wanted to do. Like, let's see what this is about. Let's see what this corporate world is about. Didn't like it. But with that, I started really, like, I knew about self-care, and I kind of knew like what that was, but it wasn't until I started working in corporate. And this is like my first time at this point. I don't know, like mid 20s, first time working in corporate, and or mid or late 20s, first time working in corporate. And I was like, oh wow, this is a lot. This was a lot for someone used to having the freedom of waitressing, the freedom of freelancing. It took a toll on me. And so I remember one day I just took, and this was and then that leadership, right? So during the pandemic, it wasn't have to do with that, but it just so happened to coincide that when the pandemic happened, there was a industry, I'm sorry, organization change. So basically, it was new leadership, because I worked at a big Fortune 500 company, so it was a big leadership change. And so my manager got moved to a different department, so I didn't have I had a different manager, ended up having different teammates. So I just kind of got thrown around in the system, and it wasn't really working out well for me. I didn't feel like I was doing valuable work. I didn't feel like I was being like utilized well. And so I remember taking, like, and then all the things that was going on with this whole 2020 that we don't know what's happening. So they offered us a lot of health, personal, mental health days. And so I took one day because I was just like at my edge, and I was just like, I can't. And I got a facial, which I hadn't done for like years. And I got my nails, like, that's in my mind. I was like, oh, that's self-care. And when I got the facial, my favorite part of it was like literally them like massaging my face. I was like, I didn't know I needed that. I was like, I didn't know that this was something that I needed. And so that just kind of got me deeper into self-care. At that point, I had a friend who was going into sound healing. Like, I didn't know what sound healing was, and before her, and she created affirmation card deck. And so I started doing actually marketing for them, because they were like, oh, they were like, they know I did it in the past, and I was kind of like, but I was like, I'll do it for you. You're my friend. I'll get back into it. And I had so much fun. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, it's not marketing that I'm sick of. It was the type of clients I was working with. It was me not doing in an industry that I was really aligned with me. And so that re-sparked my interest into marketing. And that's why I started focusing so much on so much on wellness and people who are wellness aligned. So it kind of extended. I'm kind of focusing back in, but it kind of extended to, like, if you were even like a business coach, but you had a wellness element, then I will work with you, because you still were trying to, especially in that business world, I feel like it was so much hustle, hustle, hustle. And again, for me, burning out so much, when I started my business this time around, I was like, how can I build this in a way that feels sustainable for me, that feels good, and it's not like, I could be working a job and feeling miserable and getting a consistent check. Like how can I make this something that I feel good about and want to keep doing for years to come?
Part. Wow. Incredible, incredible, incredible. It's crazy to think about. I love going through the whole journey with folks because it shows, hey, I'm really trying to some extent, even help versions of myself of who I used to be, And so I love being able to hear, like, actually, it was in these moments, these situations as to why I'm offering this to the world because I've experienced it personally. You've experienced it personally. So thank you so much for, like, clarifying why you're serving these folks because it's really easy to be like, I'm serving these folks because they have the most money. But, like, you're like, no, like, there's an intention as to why I'm serving these particular folks. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Crystal, we're coming down to the end of this interview. And so I have last two questions for you. Number one, what's your definition of an entrepreneur?
I think an entrepreneur is someone who is creating something from inside their head and bringing it into reality and charging people for it. Because if you're not charging people for it, then you're not a business. Yeah, I think it is because there's so many types of entrepreneurship. Like you could be a solopreneur, a service provider, or you could be someone who is formulating this team and is the visionary behind it, but you're still getting that end vision out into the world, and you are putting yourself out there and seeing how it performs in the market. So yeah, I think again, entrepreneur is just really someone who is out there taking risk, a little crazy, and just trying to make their visions and their dreams come true.
I love that. And so, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? You've given us such a beautiful journey thus far. I'm sure there's a couple of things that you've learned along the way that you want to give advice about.
I say if I have to just pick one thing, it's definitely to find a suitable coach. I would say mentor, but I feel like mentorship is something that tends to like develop and not necessarily you find all the time. But you can definitely find a coach and pay them to help you organize things. There's a lot of things that I wish I would have known ahead of time that I didn't, because I was trying to do everything on my own. And it wasn't even of like some, it's just what I was used to, was doing everything on my own and figuring things out. And I had been good at doing that, but there is so many aspects of a bit, like when you which ties into like being multi-passionate is great because I do get to like do all these different aspects of things, but because of that it also can become overwhelming, because if you're not good at certain aspects but you still got to do it, like with a business, you're the marketing person, you're the sales person, or just all the tech person, you're all these things in your business. And so by having someone kind of guiding, especially me coming from self-teaching and self-educating, that would have been very beneficial. And I say suitable because not every coach or every person is going to suit you. And that kind of goes into like, it takes being an entrepreneur, it takes risk. And you have to like sometimes pay someone and realize like, oh, I don't gel with this person, or this isn't a good environment for me. I need to try something else. And not just take it as like, oh, this didn't work, so I need to give up. It's like, no, this didn't work. What can I do differently? Who do I need to go to instead? And so that is one of the things, is like you have to continuously calibrate. So making sure you're continuously tuning into yourself and making sure that the decision is actually yours and not what you're hearing from other people, but also taking in that guidance. So you have to really be able to balance that of like, yes, taking advice from people, but also knowing like what is that vision that you have in your head and how can you make that happen. I would say definitely the other big thing of what accelerated like my business is getting just support all around, but especially community wise. So like I had joined business groups and things in the past, but it's also like, are you actually engaging? Are you actually involved? And so it kind of helped me when I did more in-person things, at least for me, to stay a little bit more involved and kind of have those connections. And that helped me later on as I did more online communities where I knew how to structure it and how to make sure I maintain those relationships and actually get that accountability that I needed. So just getting support in general, because there's all kind of people who want to help you. Like sometimes you just have to ask a question. Like I've had opportunities. I remember I got to talk to someone who I look up to, and I just asked, I was like, hey, is this something you do? And they're like, I'll just talk to you for free. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, and so a lot of times you just have to ask for help. And I grew up just really doing everything on my, not everything, but a lot of things on my own, and just feeling like like if you can't figure it out, then it's like, oh, well, maybe you're not smart enough, right? It's like, oh,
Mm.
if you can't figure it out. And so I had to really shift that perspective and be like, no, like asking for help is smart. Like, especially when I look like now, I look back at all the things I was doing and I was like, that's crazy that I was doing all those things on my own. And it's like, I'm a little older now. I don't have the same energy or patience for that. And so I'm like, I need awesome support. I welcome it now. Like, I'm like, no, how can, like, say, how can I create a shortcut? Because why do I, when you think about it, it's like, why am I trying to work so hard? I don't
Mm.
have to always work hard. Like, yes, it takes hard work to make this happen, but you don't have to make things harder than they need to be. And then the last thing I would say, and as I'm transitioning now, is I'm kind of going back into full circle of what I initially, some of the services and offerings I initially wanted to have. And it's really like taking back control of my business and not letting, it's this thin line of like, yes, it's like you want to not so much ask what your customers want, but listen to what they need. And so I was so focused on what they want, or saying like, oh, I need this, I want this, and not really thinking of like, what is it that what is the best way for me to solve their problem. So I got really caught up in just doing continue to add things that maybe I normally wouldn't add, or provide service I normally would provide, because I was so busy just trying to help the client at all costs. And then I had to realize like, no, like it's okay to say no to certain things. It's okay to not do everything. I don't need to be everything to these clients. I want to focus on giving out really good quality on certain things. For me right now, it's video marketing. It's getting visibility through mainly video. And with that, I can focus on that, and I don't have to stretch myself through all these other things. They can find somebody else, or I can recommend them, but I don't have to do it all. And so that was another thing of like, this is my business. I can decide, what I do and don't do. And I just kind of started letting other people kind of take the reins, and dictate how I was operating, when I was like, I don't have to do this. So I don't have to do it this way. So it's been fun reimagining how I want to run to Geek Marketing. And now am having a lot more fun with things. I am way more excited. Things just don't take as much energy in general, because I am really creating this alignment between like what it is that my clients need, but also what it is that I want to provide.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible, incredible, incredible. Crystal, thank you so much. Honestly, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I'm just so glad that I got the chance to hear it and to witness it. And also, it's really exciting to know, I'm like, ooh, I'm witnessing her in her CEO season. Okay. Okay. What's up? So thank you so much for sharing that. I hope that, I know it's going to help so many people along the way that resonate with you, who's in the fashion, who's in the art, who's in the tech, who, didn't get a degree, who grew up in the Midwest. I don't know, Southwest girl. Okay, I was like, I don't know where we're at, y'all. Just like so many parts of your story. And I also love that we're both like the youngest and also the only in a way. And it's just like, yeah, I just feel like you just shared so much of yourself. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your time and your energy and your story with us.